Hi, welcome to another program. This week I want to talk about the blockade against Qatar. It has been now 2 years that Saudi Arabia-led coalition, including countries like United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Maldives, Mauritania, and Comoros, as well as Yemen, at that time, had allocated embargo or sanctions against Qatar, and everybody was thinking that they have a point, and also moreover it's going to work. But now it has been 2 years. We see that it hasn't worked, and Qatar even becomes a little bit more favorable or stronger than before. So now we are going to discuss what happened during these 2 weeks and what's going to happen, and we will see. Now let's start with. Now, in 2014-15, we see that Qatar has been encouraged or favoring the Muslim Brotherhood. With the Arab Spring had occurred, Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates have seen that it is a risk against their administration because they are the kingdom. So what has happened is that through the media force that Qatar has been holding via Al Jazeera, they have been favoring the Muslim Brotherhoods in Egypt. Now, Saudi Arabia was afraid of that any democratic movement in Saudi Arabia might end their kingdom, or at least disrupt, which means it's all related about the power and the continuity of the kingdom. And therefore, they were heavily going against Al Jazeera and also against Qatar Emir Al Tamim and Qatar itself. So in 2015-16, while Qatar was telling that United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia is strongly against Muslim Brotherhood, not only by words or by comments, but also by actions, this was the last drop on the glass. And then Saudi Arabia led a coalition, including all these countries such as United Arab Emirates, Yemen, Egypt especially, Maldives, Mauritania, Comoros have decided to form a coalition and allocated the sanctions or an embargo against Qatar. Now, Qatar geographically is only a neighbor to Saudi Arabia, which means that all the food supply or other export-import supply comes through mainly Saudi Arabia. And Saudi Arabia had trusted this fact. They thought that once they do the embargo or the sanctions, Qatar is going to yield, bend, and this is going to get Qatar aligned with them. But what has happened is that, interestingly, Qatar's friends, I will say, such as Turkey especially, had started to support Qatar immediately. There is a navy base and also a land base in Qatar, Turkish bases. And moreover, Turkey has started to supply the food, especially from Turkey to Qatar, by special airplanes. It was a costly movement, but considering the Qatar's revenue and the Qatar's domination, natural gas domination in the global market, which is around 25%, I would say, this has favorably worked for Qatar. It was a costly move, but it worked. So there was no lack of food or supply at all in Qatar, which will rise some kind of upsets against the government or the Emir Al Tamim. And also Iran supported Qatar in that regard too. So now there is a new supply chain and the route from Turkey and Iran to Qatar in order to meet with their needs, requirements, daily requirements, and for their food supply demands. And in 2017, something has happened interestingly, that Saudi Arabia, with the new young prince, decided to execute a newspaper reporter, Jamal Khashoggi, in Istanbul embassy. And this has now worked against Saudi Arabia, because before the eyes of all the countries with democracy, Saudi Arabia is now a clear of a reporter, which is not democratic. And considering the US support to Saudi Arabia, especially last week, they have decided to support or accept a transfer of heavy military equipments, the bombs, a transfer to Saudi Arabia due to the safety of Israel, for sure. This makes a little bit US move suspicious, because it's not fair at all. Everybody at that time expected that the United States is going to take some actions against Saudi Arabia, but now we see that due to the Israel's security, they oversee this. They just put their eyes on other topics, and they do not follow that. So U.S. reliability in terms of justice is now a little bit under question mark. Moreover, it also turns some kind of grievances among other, especially some Muslim countries and developing countries. Now, putting this aside, this also makes Qatar more favorable, because Saudi Arabia was against the Muslim Brotherhoods, which was taken down by Egypt General Sisi, now who is the president, and supported by US administration. Because although Muslim Brotherhood foundation lays with the Sharia laws also, and they want the Sharia laws at the end of the day, somehow, they are not using or they are not applying armed force, which would put the etiquette on themselves as a terrorist group. So that's the difference. So as an idea, they are saying that there should be a life where the Muslim lifestyle should be adopted, and it should be allowed. And we should use this a little bit Sharia laws with the daily lives together. Personally, I don't also agree too much about this, but there are a lot of debates that we can do about that. But most and all, Sharia and the lives that we have today cannot be lived together. Once you put the religion somewhere else, either it is this or that. It's not in between. It will never ever work in between, because people cannot. Religion in that respect doesn't give the opportunity, the lives that we have here, or vice versa. So people have to choose one to another. That's why I don't believe the generosity of the Muslim Brotherhoods in general, because I don't believe that they are saying the truth about it at all. It's either this or that. It's never in between. However, it's a good intention, and I agree that it should be heard and discussed. But I don't think that it can be achieved. Now, considering the Qatar, it makes it favorable because Qatar is supporting the Muslim Brotherhoods. However, on the hand side, they are not applying for the armed forces, which doesn't make them a terrorist group, only a group that wants to Sharia life allocated in daily lives. That's why now against Saudi Arabia, after especially Khashoggi event, Qatar becomes much more favorable, because at least they are defending an idea or supporting an idea, but not an action. So what will happen from now on? I don't believe that Qatar is much more concerned about Saudi Arabia or any force by Saudi Arabia, especially since Turkey has decided to allocate a military base in Qatar, including Navy, which makes them strong, and also it's a promising action by Turkey that anything happens within Qatar, Turkey is going to support militarily. That's now granted. Therefore, it considers Saudi Arabia-led coalition cannot start an military action against Qatar. Not because they are afraid of, because it will be very stupid action, to be honest. It will only evoke a military conflict between Turkey and some Arab countries, including especially Saudi and United Arab Emirates. That's granted, more or less. So we think that Qatar will be more favorable in front of everybody from now on, and we believe that these sanctions or embargo will be finished or terminated in a couple of years, because it's not effective, it's not working. And even though Saudi Arabia has been buying military equipment, especially from the United States, which accumulated 2014 $88.5 billion, and now it's 68 to 75 billion, they are not effective. They don't have the effective army to administer. We see this in the Yemen conflict. In 2014, they have 13% of GDP, which is accumulated to 88.5 billion US dollars, but with those equipments and intelligent bombs and intelligent military equipments, the result is null. Which means that it's not about the equipment they have, it's about how they run the equipments. And they don't have this capacity. That's why Saudi Arabia is always and continuously seeking for US support against Iran. That's why they are now aligned with Israel, because they might buy everything else, but they don't have the capacity to run it effectively. Yemen already explains this to us. They can't. It's about the capacity, it's about the culture, it's about everything else, to be honest. And it's not about being brave or having the power to buy everything else. It's not about this. It's about the capacity. They don't have the history about it, they don't have the capacity about this, and that's why they are always seeking foreign helps. That's why also Qatar is not going to be afraid of Saudi Arabia, not because they can defend their country. Actually, their country is only 15,000 kilometers square country with 2 million, I think, population. And Saudi Arabia has definitely all the advantage against this, but because Turkey is there, Saudi Arabia will not escalate any tension with Turkey on Qatar anymore. They can't. That's why continuously Qatar effectiveness is going to increase. The blockade is going to end in 3 to 5 years, in my expectation. And Saudi Arabia will come to terms to discuss with Qatar how they can find a resolution to their conflicts. And we expect this will start soon. If you like the video, please put the like button, press on the like button, and subscribe to our channel so you can receive the notification and start listening and watching the videos about the topics that we have been covering. We will appreciate that. Thank you for watching, and see you later. Bye.